And good morning, everyone. We're here at Oshkosh 2022. I'm here with my friend Mark Taylor from Cincinnati, Ohio. He has a Hatz biplane that is very unique, and I want to do a quick video to show you. He's going to do a walk around. This isn't Andrew this time. This is Mark Taylor. So Mark, how are you doing?
Very well, Dewey.
Yeah, so he's going to give us a little description about the cool engine that he has on it, some of the walk around stuff, you know, maybe the fuel. And you know, he's been flying this airplane almost 500 hours. Every time I'm flying my biplane doing rides, pretty much I see Mark out flying around, beating around in grass strips all over the place. So Mark, I'm gonna hand it off to you, so stand by.
This is the Verner. Verner's built in the Czech Republic. This is the 9-cylinder version. It's 158 horse at 2,400 RPM. There's a 7-cylinder version that I believe is 128 horsepower. The engine, originally when I built this airplane, I flew it for 8 years, finished building it in 2012. I had an Lycoming 0320 on it and flew it for 8 years, about 400 hours. But I always wanted a radial engine because I just think the Hatz biplane is a perfect fit for a radial engine. My friend Malin Smith down at Broadhead built a Hatz and put a Warner on it and let me fly it. I was so impressed. It's such a beautiful engine on that airplane, except it's a little big, a little too heavy. And my buddy kept convincing me that you don't want a Warner because parts are hard to find and all that sort of thing. So I went with the 0320 and flew it for 8 years. Then the Verner comes along and went ahead and put the order in for one. While I was waiting for it to be delivered, I took the airplane apart, pulled all the fabric off the fuselage. But I wanted to change, first of all, the tail. I wanted to fabric off because I wanted to be able to change the angle of attack of the horizontal stabilizer. But with fabric on there, the way it was originally, it was all one piece of fabric going up to the vertical stabilizer. You couldn't change it without cutting fabric. So I took that off, took fabric off, redid that, so I made metal fairings on it. And now it's easy for annual inspections to be able to get in there to see things. I can change the angle of attack, so I've got it trimmed out right where I need it now. Also, I thought I was going to have to change some bulkheads up here to get the fuselage more rounded, but come find out I really didn't. What I ended up having to do is just put a new firewall in, a different shaped firewall to make it more rounded. And then all the sheet metal work, I had no idea what it was going to look like in the finals when it's done, but it just kept fitting metal in, fitting pieces, working these down on my English wheel, and I'm real happy with the way it came out. I just think it's real pretty. This is my intake scoop for my oil cooler. That's the exit for the oil cooling. I've got some blast tubes. Got a blast tube here. This just brings cool air in and dumps it in front of the carburetor to supply carburetor with cooler air. This blast tube runs air into my electronic ignition system to keep it cool, and then this blast tube just dumps air in on my voltage regulator and my battery to keep them cool. This engine has a dry sump, so it has to have a separate oil tank. So that's what this housing is covering up, is my oil tank. And it's a gravity feed sump, gravity feed system, so there's no pump pumping the oil back to the tank. So the tank has to be below the lowest point of drain, which is these two bottom cylinders. And then here's the case drain. So that's why the tank has to be down here, so I had to build the housing way down there. It's a culvert prop. Yes, Elena builds these, and she is a craftsman, really knows her stuff. It's a beautiful prop. I love it. And she just came by yesterday and asked me how my prop was doing. I haven't seen her since last year. My prop was ready to be delivered just before Oshkosh, so I called her and I said, hey, don't bother shipping it. I'll just see it. Oshkosh picked it up. So I got to meet her for the first time here last year at Oshkosh and picked up my propeller. So she came by yesterday, and we got to talk about the prop. There's some things I wanted to ask her about. I want to take a little bit of pitch out of it, and I asked her if that's possible. She said yes, but she said, but I said, I don't want to lose the prop in the summer. I want to fly. So this winter, I think I'll take it off, send it back to her just to tweak it a little bit. Beautiful props. Culver, I highly recommend Culver props. The prop is originally it was 85 inch, but I cut an inch off of each end myself and gave me 75 more RPM. It's a 56 inch pitch, and I want a 55 now. It works fine the way it is. It's just a little bit over pitched.
Okay, so what is the diameter again?
Now it's 83.
83 and you want to be
56.
56. Okay.
And I want an 83-55.
Okay.
I think that'll be fine. That's still a little bit over prop, but I like it over prop because I do acro and I don't want to overspeed the engine. So I'm using an overpitched prop as a speed governor for the engine, so I won't over torque it.
So you just heard Mark say he does aerobatics. So what do? You know, Hatz can do what aerobatic wise?
Gentleman aerobatics, loops, rolls. You do hammerheads if you want. No tail slides. I don't do snap rolls. I've had a couple pitches and I wrung them out. That was fun. But this is not a pitch. It's just gentleman aerobatics. It's a good airplane for that.
And this is a plans built aircraft, right?
Plans built. Yeah. There's no kits available as far as I know anymore. The Hatz Classic, there was a kit years ago available, but he has quit producing those now. So it's plans built.
Okay. Well, let's walk around it here real quick, look at the wings, and then we can sum up this video, maybe the cockpit, if you don't mind.
Sure. Yeah, the cockpit, the panel. When I was flying Malin Smith's Warner-powered Hatz at Broadhead many years ago, I'd be up at that thing and hearing that old engine thumping along, and I just felt like over the beautiful green Wisconsin grassland and looking out the farms, I felt like it was 1932, and that's what I wanted. That's what I love. I think I was born many years too late. I should have been a barnstormer in the 20s and the 30s. But so anyhow, I wanted to keep the airplane simple. No lights, no radios. You look at my panel there, it's got the basic information that I need. I've got my airspeed, I've got my tachometer, and I know how high I am, and my oil pressure and my oil temperature. That's all I need to know.
And I see your compass.
My compass, I had to put it up top because it gets interference, magnetic interference from the steel frame. So up on the center section, there's no metal up there, so it doesn't have any interference.
You see this wire here? He's talking about this. All this is, he's charging his battery because he doesn't have electrical system, so he only has a battery for it, and that's to keep the engine running.
So then a friend of mine has a 1930 Waco, and the door on his Waco is this type. So I wanted 1930, so I just copied this design and made my door, my Waco door, so to speak.
Yeah, this Hatz is a scaled down Waco.
That's what it is. John Hatz always liked the Wacos, and I've always loved the Wacos. So yeah, he designed it after the Waco. The 4 ailerons, the wings are semi-elliptical, trailing edge here. I love that look. 4 ailerons gives you better roll rate, so I'm all for that. Better aerobatics. Now there's some guys that build Hatzes and they leave the top aileron out. They just extend another bay for the lower longeron and just have ailerons on the lower wing. And cuts down your roll rate, but you could still do turns just fine. It's just not as good for doing aerobatics, doing barrel rolls and things.
One last question, how much fuel do you hold?
Okay, my tank is, originally the plans call for 18 gallons because on the plans, the airplane is built for Lycoming 0320, 100 horse, which burns 6 gallons an hour. Now with the 0320, and I'm burning 8 gallons an hour, I made the fuel tank larger, so it's holding 25 gallons to feed the Lycoming. Now with this burner, my burn rate is just about the same, 7.5 to 8 gallons an hour. So, oh, another thing I forgot to mention, while I had this apart, the engine is lighter than the Lycoming, so I really needed to get more weight up front. So I had an old Luscombe fuselage fuel tank. I cut it down to where it holds 4 gallons, and I put a header tank just behind the firewall. I've got a header tank of 4 gallon plumbed into it, and that gives me the weight up there. Now, you know, I burn 20 gallons at a time out of my 25 gallon tank, and I don't burn any more than that. But that fuel gives me weight up there, but it also gives me the assurance that if I'm on across the country and I've got 8 more miles to fly to get to my fuel stop, and my fuel gauge is bouncing on empty and sometimes not bouncing at all, it just makes me feel better knowing I've got the fuel.
Yep, get your VFR reserves.
Yes, right. A little blurb here on my wheel pants. A friend of mine restored a tailorcraft, and some of the tailorcrafts had these little things just out of aluminum, and I liked the looks of that. A friend of mine was restoring one and put that on, so I went and got some brass and designed that. But the first one I made, I asked my wife, says, how's that look? She said, that's too little. So I remade it bigger, and she said, that looks good. So the little one, I thought, what am I going to do with this thing? A couple days later, I'm sitting in my chair looking at my airplane in the hangar, and I saw this handle, and I thought, perfect place for the small one. So it ties right in with my wheel pants now.
Yes. We got a jet flying over. An A-10. Yes.
Tank killer. So anyhow, little things like that just happen all the time, how they tie in. Originally, my Javelins, I painted them to match the wings. But then when I got this beautiful prop from Elena, I made them out of wood and stained them to match the prop. So now that ties the prop in. It's a thing for me. Other people might not notice, but
well, that's what's cool about building your own airplane, and you do your own customization.
Another change, Hatz's aren't designed with the door in the front, but it's kind of difficult to get in and out. So this design has a little door.
Nice. Very nice.
It makes it much easier to get in and out. It's a blast to fly. It's a sweet little flying airplane. I'd highly recommend a Hatz to people. They're easy to fly. It's kind of like a Champ or a Cub or a Super Cub. It's just with this engine combination, it's a lot larger mass in front of you, so it's a little more difficult to see, but it's still it's a very docile tail drag. The wing is a Clark Y airfoil, which is what Piper Cubs have, so it's not going to go fast, but it flies nice. It flies slowly. It's an excellent toilet paper cutting machine, and it's just a lot of fun to fly.
Well, I appreciate everything, and hope you guys enjoy this walk around that Mark gave us, and I'm gonna call it quits if that's all right with you.
That's fine. I'm happy to run into you here, Dewey, and we're having a ball here at Oshkosh 22.
Yes, we are. Well, everyone, until then, blue skies.